I'm Mushond Lee, and I'm on Tasha Little's Little podcast. And this is for the love of baklava and storytelling. Did I get it right, Tosh?
You did. You did. Thumbs up.
Thanks a lot, Tasha Little, for your little podcast
Yay.
and telling the
Yay.
story of the love of baklava and storytelling. So
For
let's
the
tell a
love of
story.
baklava. For the
Yeah.
love of baklava. Look at this.
Wow, that's a handsome book you have there, Tasha. My
Isn't this
goodness.
amazing? The
People told,
tale of baklava. Guess what? I think I know who wrote this.
oh my goodness. You know what's funny? People have said to me, what is it? Is that you? And I'm like, I guess it may be a little
Maybe
resemblance.
coloring is similar.
Exactly,
Yeah.
something to it.
Yeah.
I gave
Yeah.
him my dad's green eyes. That was my
I
thing.
love it. And I
Yeah.
love the belt buckle.
Ah, I
Yes.
love that.
Good
That's my
stuff.
detail. That's one of the things I kind of put in there kind of for merchandising too. But then it also gives them a little cool edge. I love
Very
it
cool.
because when I work my artist, I remember when I came up with that, I'm like, oh, I like that. Nice little subtle little bling there that kind of shows you that like he's like this entertainer dude, has kind of been through it a little bit, but definitely will put the zhuzh on, you
The
know.
zhuzh. So
He's got his
cool.
own little got his fit together, you know what I mean?
Love it. Well, Moo, thank you so much for even like considering coming on my little podcast. Because
Uh, I can't tell you how excited I've been about being on this, man.
so I'm really, really happy that, I think maybe, I don't know, you look familiar. Like, did we go to high school together?
Yo, now isn't that funny? It's kind of what we were talking about beforehand. This is so Absagami 1989, and that's yo, shout out to 89. I know you guys are watching. What's
Whatever.
up?
We're the greatest. We are.
We are the
Tanzania,
greatest.
the
What
greatest.
what was your favorite teacher there?
Oh, you already put me on the spot with
Was it Mr.
that.
Najar? I gave
No,
Najar a
did you
shout
really
out.
say that
How
out
crazy
loud?
is that? What Mr. Coleman? He was like like a family figure with us
Well,
because he could track
EJ, right?
EJ.
EJ was such
EJ,
a
shout out to EJ.
EJ. I always think back to like my time in the studio on Gammy TV, and I had so much fun, like learning how to
Right,
edit. And
right,
that's why, I started playing on this again. Like during the podcast, it brought me back to editing and storytelling, and I
right.
really enjoyed that. He was Yeah, he was great. I wish I would have had more confidence at that time in my life to lean into what he thought I would be good at.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. That kind of like kind of almost like gives kind of an intro to kind of the whole situation. Is that high school is such a blast off. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you're spending so many of your formative years going through this structure, and the thing is that, like, as somebody was saying, you start to begin to know who you are, but you don't know who you are in the context of the rest of the world, the rest of life, until you get to where we are, So, you
Which
kind of
is
fully, well, kind of you,
holy moly, man. Tomorrow's your birthday, and I'm thinking you're
yeah, it's funny. Somebody said 53 the other day. I'm like, no, no, it's actually 54. 54. Like, you mean you can't be more central than 55? And I mean, who thought? Like now I'm the older guy in the room.
yeah.
It's like, I'm the older guy at work and everything. And I'm just like, whoa, man. Everybody, all the older references, like I told people the other day that, Kool and the Gang was my first concert at the Harris Marina Hotel Casino outside of Brigantine, New Jersey.
Oh
What?
my goodness. That is a great first concert.
Yeah. Oh, no, exactly, exactly. But yeah,
Yeah.
but to our generation,
Yes.
these little zoomies and whatnot are like, who? I know I was actually playing Rod Stewart in my car the other day, and I pulled up to work, and not necessarily in my I guess my brand, but I've always loved Rod Stewart. Who we talking about?
Mhm.
And this one guy next to me, he's like 37. When I pulled up, I was like, yeah, she's rocking out to a little Rod Stewart, and he was like,
Who?
I've 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 heard the name, my wife. I was like, Rod Stewart? I mean, come on. That's popped out. That's like when you go to the mall or something, you'd hear some Rod Stewart. I was like, wow, generations like that. But then also I think it's because the information they have is so dense. We didn't have as much information. So with them, now is now. Like
Right.
when we were younger, I would watch an older movie and wouldn't think, that's old. I always get, that's old, blah, blah, blah. But like with
Because
them,
it was black and white.
ah, they were riding dinosaurs.
Yeah. Well, I have to say something that we've I've always remembered about you, and when I think about you, as I look back at our life in high school, and we've known each other. You know, I don't think I'm never not going to know you. You put yourself out there, and but something that always makes me smile is hearing your laughter.
Well, you're funny.
Oh, I'm funny.
It's your
Yay!
fault.
I always wanted to be a comedian.
Oh yeah? Well, no, you got that vibe. What are you talking about?
I think I'm funny. Most people,
you you always take the wacky choices. Like you'll we be in a picture with somebody and Tasha has to be the whacked out one.
I
It's like,
know, I do. I can't, like just smile, really. Like, can I do something different?
right, right.
Like,
Anybody can just
I
smile.
can smile. Ooh,
You have to
yeah,
put a little flair, a little character into it, a little
yeah,
personality, a little show hands.
yeah. All right, back to you, my friend. So, this is super cool. I know
uh,
you've been working on this for quite a while, and you recently birthed this,
yeah.
the Tale of Baklava. So tell me, like, what inspired you to write a children's book?
Yeah, well, I like to think of it as transcends ages. I like to call it, instead of a kid's book, I call it a coffee table fable. Something you just like have laying around and look at, and every once in a
Mhm.
while you see something you hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it came from I was working at this warehouse, right, with this Nigerian guy. And I mentioned it because he was playing this song by Fela Kuti. I'm sure you have this on your playlist. What are we talking about?
So I
and
have to
it,
find
it,
that.
it was called Balava, right? And
Okay.
so yeah, which means trouble, like
Okay.
getting into trouble. And so he would play it at night. He's big with his little speaker and whatnot. He has little dance moves to crack me up. And so it would go out into like the night air, and it would like ba la la da na 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 na. And in the first, I guess stanza or whatever that is in music, it was about this cat and this mouse had this frenemy relationship, and so they say, when the rat is sleeping, the mouse come bite him tail, and what happens? And so something about it, because I'd never heard like music like this and the
Okay.
sound, and then the story, something about it gripped me, and then the context, just wide open in the air, and it's just me and him just working and whatnot. And I was like, I don't know, man. That sounds like something I'm supposed to write. I was like,
Love it.
because I've written some scripts before and stuff like
Hmm.
that, being out here. And I was just like, it's like, his name's Peter. I was like, Pete, I think I'm gonna have to write this, bro. And he's like, what does it mean? What are you saying? I'm just saying that it's just difficult, man. These things, they take so long. You got to think about them this way, that way, the third. Then you got to get to different levels, like, people gonna like it and this and that or whatever. Because, I've known a lot of people that, will write a book and, the big thing is writing a book, oh my God, I wrote it. And then when they write it, they're like, I did it. But then nothing at all happens with it,
Hmm.
which is fine because you got that little ball up the hill.
Right.
But so I started like just ruminating on, okay, wait a minute, let me maybe there's another side to, once you get this finished. So I start thinking to myself, oh, okay, there's a whole analogy about what happens when the dog catches the car. Because classically, you have the dog, you see the dog out there trying to get the car, trying to get the car. You're like, what, poor little dog, what's he gonna do? You would think, what would happen when the dog catches the car? Same way as what happens when you finish a vision? What happens when you get it in the can? What happens when you get it in book form? And so with Baklava in particular, I think, what happens when I finish Baklava? And it's like, okay, what happens when the dog catches the car? I was like, okay, well, the dog catches the car, you make him famous.
Yeah.
So you just
Yeah.
gotta get eyes on him, just get him out there, get him exposed. Because really the goal is to kind of stow him into pop culture.
Yeah.
Make him seem like something that you kind of heard about. So when you see something else, you're like, oh, the same way like with a Bugs Bunny or something like that or whatever. Just my little fantasy. So I want kind of I think of it as more kind of a franchise opportunity Always
I
wanted to like
see
murder.
that.
Yeah.
Actually, I felt that way after reading it. It was like, like there really are, there's so, this is just the beginning,
Right. Right.
of like the adventures, right?
Yes. Yes.
And this story is about, when I read it, I mean, you tell me, but I was like, this is about really the beginning of a friendship.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's, I mean, like at the end, it was you really did hit all the parts, and at the end is like, a choice, I choose you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
for me, that was like, oh, that was really good. That really
Oh,
was
that's
heartfelt. I
that's great. That's great. That's great.
Mhm.
Because that was the goal. Because friendship has always been an issue in my life.
Okay.
It's always been like it's always meant so much to me. And it's always been kind of scarce. You know what I'm saying? I could only like it like I didn't have a big like a whole lot of friends. I just had a few of them near
Hmm.
and dear. Shout out to Shay. There's only, a few people that have, been around for experience. What is it? Okay, on the movie Tombstone, where the dude, I forget what the guy said to Val Kilmer or something like that. And like, he's like, why is this such a big deal to you? What's the big deal? You came out here, you're sick or whatever. I'm misquoting, but he was like, some about, a friend. And he's like, I got a lot of friends. He's like, I don't. And that was his whole modus operandi. That was his whole motive, just because of, just it's good friendship is so valuable, it's so scarce, and it's so dear.
Right.
And that was really, really, really my goal, to show how that can supersede like anything in certain ways, to have just a buddy,
Right.
somebody that, will answer your calls and you can just kind of, you can play around, you can be yourself. And then, where you got, not, but Nana LaPortia, she's, kind of hard to be a friend. You know what I'm saying? She's, she
Yeah.
wants to eat them,
Yep.
she's always hangry,
Yep. So this is
but
your character, the cat.
yes, the cat in it,
Yes,
the
which
part of the
turns out to
duo.
be your best friend.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
And it
yeah,
is like that's what I enjoy too. It's like a friendship doesn't always start out like, you see the person and you absolutely love them. Like
right,
you don't sometimes,
right,
right? Like
right.
you have to build that relationship. You've got to push through, you know, have an adventure sometimes
Yeah, there you go.
to end
There you
up,
go.
really appreciating and choosing them. So I really like that a lot
Yeah,
because I feel the same way about friendship, right?
yeah,
And that
yeah.
it's
Was that?
finding that authenticity, right? That authentic person that sees you for you
Yes,
and there's no judgment.
yes, yeah. You can sit around. You might
Yeah.
break wind.
Belch, which I'm
Right,
known for.
right. And
No,
they don't
not
have a
me.
problem with it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really the spice of life.
Right.
They also say, the five people that you spend the most time around is who you are. And it's like, it's like birds of a feather. And sometimes they look a lot like us, but then sometimes they just have the same mentalities, the same that have the same hobbies, the same fears, the
Hmm.
same aspirations, the same goals. And when you can just kind of sit around with them and just you see a reflection of yourself,
Right.
and then also you think yourself, I'm not the only one that may be going through this or whatever. It's
Right.
just, they're even playing sports with them. Is like, speaking of high school, just the soccer team that I played on was just such a big part of my life. That was my dad, coached us all the time and then led us into Absagami. And then, from there we had the brothers that we played with, the Gammy and whatnot. And, a lot of years we sucked, you know what I'm saying? But we sucked together.
Right.
It's just the camaraderie of, basically getting the food and whatnot after we lost and whatnot. Everything was fine. It all washed away in the pasta.
That's good. I love that. So this book, I see it as, like you said, a coffee table book, but tell me more. I mean, I see it as a gift to your son,
Oh
obviously,
yeah, yeah,
right? Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so tell me more about the character development, like It does. Baklava does remind me. I mean, he's you, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know out here there's this museum called LACMA, and years ago, decades ago, I went to this Picasso exhibit.
Okay.
And the thing that was the craziest about it, like you have on the headphones, you're walking through, you see his work, you see his work, you see his work. But then you're hearing, what was going on in his life at the time. And so you saw how it reflected, what was going on with him in his work. And it was kind of uncanny. And then that kind of opened up something. I'm like, oh, that's how you have to do it. You have to put some of yourself in there and then, express through that. So that's why even when they say it kind of looks like me or whatever, it's like, it's on purpose, but then it's not. It's like in order for me to kind of find my voice, in a story or through a character or whatever, you have to put a little you in there. But first of all, you got to figure out who you are. That's the weirdest thing, So that's the journey right there. It's
Mhm.
like, what is my voice? You know what I'm saying? It's like it's funny when you first hear your actual voice on a tape recorder. You're like, that's how I sound. It's like, oh, you don't want to hear it. It's like, even right now, I'm looking at myself while I'm doing this. It's like, oh, there he is. That guy. But when you can kind of figure out how to kind of personify yourself and then put yourself into a narrative, that's where the art kind of comes in.
Mhm.
And when I saw kind of Picasso do that, then they had the Van Gogh do that or whatever, high end guys or whatever. I would bring that into my work when I was acting and whatnot. I
Mhm.
remember when like I first started booking a lot of commercials, it was because I figured out like if they say, okay, here's this product, you got to sell it or whatever. At first, when I would try to sell it or whatever, I would judge it. I'd be like, oh, Vaseline, or if it was like something, let's say like Cheer or Tide or
Zinger.
something like that, something that was whack. Let's say it was a bad toothpaste or a bad apple juice, but if I made it Mott's apple juice, you know what I'm saying? Then I can put myself into it and be like, yo, it's the Mott's. He's got the Mott's. You know what I'm saying? Then that's when your je ne sais quoi comes in. That's when you make, your real choices. So, kind of bringing it back to with baklava, you know, um, oh yeah, the backstory that's in there. I have this thing called the backstory. That was even kind of maybe even preceded like the song that I was talking about because I kind of put kind of my memory of my dad in there and how you kind of reflect on kind of the sorrow of mourning and things like that. And you kind of put that in there to kind of ground the story and to kind of get into the sincerity of one's background, what people have struggled with and whatnot. And then you humanize it. And then, then the friendship elements, relationships that I've had that have come and gone have made friendships so valuable and powerful. And then the ones that have sustained, have, made it wonderful and, just so grateful for it. And it's why I kind of wanted to articulate that, for an audience, because it's a weird thing. Like when you consider yourself an artist and you're not producing any art, you're like, what is it? Then you put yourself in that situation, and then you're like, well, I have to complete this thing. You know what I'm saying? I have to have it in my hand, so that I can say that I'm an artist. And I know at work, I got there when the book had just come out, and I was talking to this guy on the way in, and he's like, well, no, when I got in there, I saw it on somebody's desk, and my mind I was like, whoa. So somebody had bought the art that I had conceptualized and then, realized. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, finally. I said,
So
bad,
cool.
bad or good, I'm an artist,
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so kind of cheesy to kind of say that, but that has been the goal. When
Yeah.
I acted and whatnot, I didn't necessarily feel like an artist, even though
Mhm.
it is an art form. I take nothing from it.
Mhm.
But for me to kind of, to have the full range of control and have the purity of the vision come through. And then also, like you said, this is the beginning of it. I can't wait to tell more of the stories
Yeah.
because my storytelling will also improve because
Mhm.
of the medium. Oh, that's another thing I want
Right.
to say is that the way that I did this was another coworker that I had. He had a son who was working on Fiverr, that app, and on Fiverr, they have where you find these artists and whatnot. And he with his son, he was just doing a little storytelling exercise for school. And so when I looked at it, and this guy was not really a creative guy or whatever, but I looked at it and I was like, oh wow, I could do a lot with that. I could really play around with that. So had no idea. My artist is from Indonesia,
Okay.
and so just dealing with him, and I never really knew how good he really was with the language, so to speak. But he would get what I was saying, and then also he could build on it. So I was just kind of playing around with him at first. I would kind of concept, building the character literally and figuratively of Baklava. I would tell him a different scenario here, and another scenario here, a run here, a montage here, and so he would send stuff back, and then I would say, okay, flip it like this, have them more so, in this context, and make it a little darker, And so the reason why I mention that is that so I came up with a series of events that were all, of course, relevant and in my head. But then I kind of put them together like a deck of cards, so to speak,
Right.
and then sewed together a narrative. Really, just because my big thing was creating the world and the dynamic between the characters. And so it's kind of in my mind like how you do a film, where it's like you put together these scenarios and then you do reversals. This happens, then oh this happens, and this happens and then this happens. So you spin people around. You're going in this direction and you spin them back in another direction, spin them back in another direction. And that's kind of like a filmatic way of writing it. And this is but now this is in a storytelling concept, I guess
Okay.
concept or whatever. So in the next ones, I'll probably have more of a through narrative that is like more so traditional.
Okay.
Now that I've kind of set up the characters, but I also like kind of the rock and roll of what I've already created. So I love
I
the
do too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
love the
mean,
basics of how it is.
I feel like, it's fun, it's colorful. To me, it does read like a movie, like
Yeah, yeah,
it is kind of graphic novelish in some
yes,
areas where it's like,
yeah,
okay, like I'm looking at the pictures and, you're showing and tell, like, and not telling, you're showing.
yes.
Um, the illustrator's name is Bagus. How do I say his last name?
I've never ever said it before. I just look at
Nug
it.
Rojo, it looks like. Nug Rojo. Okay. So you basically just talked on the phone. Did
I've
you
never I've never even heard his voice, but he does.
really? So it was
Yeah,
just
no,
emailing?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All through Fiverr for like a good amount of time, and
Wow.
we do have a. It's interesting because we have a genuine rapport, and that was the interesting. I discovered him on Fiverr, but what it was is that he has this one picture, where it's like these kids going down this very steep hill, and they're inside the shopping cart, and they're just like, ah. And so, and something about it was zany, it was cute, it was funny, and I was like, oh, all of those elements are what I want to have in there. I had other ones where like the artwork was more perfect. You know what I'm saying? More this
Mhm.
engaging in this way, engaging this way. He had a whole lot of kind of kick to what he had there, and I was like, I could really use that because then it won't make me so heady. You know what I'm saying? It'll make me more like it's already a character in and of itself, his work, And
Yeah.
then as I'm telling you this, I actually realized I had another artist before this, what I started with. And
Okay.
it was a woman, and she did probably about like 4 illustrations for me. Right. And then she ghosted. I don't know. It was personal. I'm sure it wasn't personal paying her. But I could not find her,
Right.
and that was what I always feared with this guy. It's like, what happens if he leaves all of a sudden? What if something happens to him?
Okay.
What do you do in that
Right.
situation? Because it's not my pen,
Right.
But fortunately, we made it through together.
Right.
I love the dude. We really have like this unique cyber relationship. Like who knew?
So your process is really interesting to me. So it was like, like really started with the song, then you started playing with it and envisioning it and then so you wrote, but you did you then you did the artistry and writing together?
Yeah, yeah. I would.
You didn't
What
finish like writing the book and then like send
No,
it to someone.
no, and that's
Okay.
the thing because like I said, I've written like a script, page
Right. So it's
to the end. I've done
yeah,
that. I've done that, and then, like so, I'm not saying that that's the way to do it, but with me, it was so engaging to go back and forth with him with just
to
different
see it.
scenarios, and then I could jump to another scenario. I really need this ice cream cafe at this top of this thing at this hill. Something about this to me tell the story. And I was influenced by a couple of different artists, whatnot. And I was like, I want to have that kind of influence in there. And then I would, okay, let me get the end, so let me work towards the end. So in some ways it become like an outline, but then I would have but then I would fill it in. And
Okay.
so then it became fun because like, okay, so I have this. Okay, so visually, once I get all, got all that information down, and then, okay, now looking at how they came out literally, now let me fill in, what the story is, even though, the story was already there, but then I had to put it kind of, make it readable,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, so when you look at this and what the story is, and so then I would just, write it and whatnot. It was a crazy way to do it. I would have it on my phone, this like this little thing and these notes, and sometimes I would lose it and have something written down, and I'd like, where did that one go? And then this one, and then I'd have to say, well, let me write this other scenario and whatnot. And so it was really fun, because I
Yeah.
was always getting my creative fix,
Right.
especially because like when you tell somebody, you articulate to them what do I want to happen, and then you see them bring it back to you. It's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when I wanted to have them on the streets. Oh, and then also the streets that I use for this, the reference that I use is, I'm going to say it wrong, but it's like Makako, and it's like this place on the was on the west side of Africa. It's like urban. It's urban,
Okay.
and so yeah, it's like urban, Africa, whatever, on the west coast, and it's just like the dirt streets and whatnot. And so I use those visuals and I would feed that to my artists and whatnot. And so there's this place like it's like a grimy Venice outside of that, and that's kind of what I used in his backstory, for when they had the cafe, well, the bakery, that
Mhm.
had problems or whatnot. And so I kind of built out from that scenario, and then kind of it's like he's kind of a guy, he's an entertainer, that used to entertain his mom, and then wants to entertain the world, and that's where he feels he'll find his love, and like and hey, that's the thing about being an actor. That's the whole modus operandi for an actor, is that you professionally try to find people to like you. That's how you get a job. You
Right.
go into these auditions and you have to shuck and jive, and do all the bells and whistles, and you're like, hey, all right, what do you think? I've actually I don't know if this actually happened, but I always envision like, like kind of a slow motion, like right when you leave the room, just seeing like kind of the dust from an eraser kind of fly up or fly back as somebody erases your name right after you walk out the door. I mean, that was the vibe. That was the whole thing, the drama that you would go through.
Wow.
So, you're always trying to win the room.
Right.
You're always trying to perform in a way that appeals to these people so that they'll, love you, so that they'll want to
Yeah.
hire you, and so that was the job. And so that was how I have like Baklava, his whole thing is that, he thinks is that, hey, if I can entertain them, and be loving, it's obvious I won't just be a pet, who wouldn't want that,
Right.
and he's like, he's just sold that this is the way, and of
Absolutely.
course, Nana is like, whatever, bro.
So I
you
think
know,
this is a perfect segue for you to read
oh, it's a little
like the
segue.
backstory of baklava.
My name is Baklava. My mom named me that. She said I'm the sweetest thing that anyone will ever meet. So she had to name me after the sweetest treat. Anyway, it was late and lonely one night. I stumbled down a lonely dirt road. Something just didn't feel right. Now, I'm not going to be rhyming through this whole thing, but it could happen. See, I'm a songwriter. I'm always playing with lyrics in my head. I think I'm passionate. Back to my story. I was just wandering around this street, came to the end of the bottom of this really steep hill. I heard there was this ice cream cafe at the top called the Smiling Elephant. The local said I should check it out when I get a chance. I didn't have anything else to do, so I decided I'd find a place to stay nearby and then get some rest and go up there a little while later. And that's that page, Tasha.
Thank you so much for reading it, Moo. No, I think you're right. I mean, we're kind of talking through this. We talked about this a little bit, but I love that he's not a rat. He's
Right.
not.
Right, right. It kind of is an endearing thing.
Hmm.
It really, I don't even know how I conceptualized that, but it just made sense to make it kind of like the human experience. How, hey, it's like, first of all, he says, not all rats are dirty. you know, and my mom was mouse, my dad was rat. And he really takes it kind of personal when you call him one or the other.
Right.
This is who I actually am. You're trying to put me together. I've already been put together, brother. you know, and so, that to me is definitely so American, but
Yeah,
it really gets us into how we deal with our neighbor and whatnot. And it's just, how personal it was to him, what his identity is.
yeah. I love that. So
Yeah.
have you worked on like your pitch for the book?
My pitch for the
Haven't?
next for pitch for this book,
Yeah,
my elevator pitch.
yeah.
No, it's just on the back of the book. That's what I use. Yeah, I built you up to that. Got to read the book.
So
Got to pick
yes,
it
you
up.
did it on the back of the book.
Yeah. Oh no, that's I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get ready to laugh, cheer, fall in love with a hero like no other in the tale of Baklava. And I have to say that I felt like all of those things. Love,
Yeah.
hero, laughter, fun, adventure. It got a little scary. A little
Good.
scary.
Good.
There's some little dark, ice cream scariness happening there.
That's awesome.
Uh, yeah, I heard your voice a lot in it, and I'm excited for the other adventures for you to work on.
Yeah.
And this is a big deal. I know how hard it is to put together something and to actually have something. I
Yeah.
don't have this yet. I have a goal of creating something,
Right.
book, but I just want you to know, like, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
This is really giving birth to something that and I know it's in your nature, but it's a beautiful thing to see
Yeah.
something through,
Yeah.
to
Yeah. No,
have something.
well, if anybody takes anything away from this, I sincerely offer that, is that it's like everybody has a vision, and, damn it, see it through, because there is a joy like I've never had, and I can only speak sincerely, I mean, it's a kid's book, this guy, a grown man, with this kid's book, of course, I call it Coffee Table Fable, but,
Oh man,
to,
almost 54.
yeah, you can't, like, okay, overgrown. I'm an overripe banana, Tasha. But yeah, it really is true. See the vision through, and it's such a personal. It's funny because this is so on Front Street, but it's really such a personal thing, to say, look, I have this little crazy, wacky concept that I would like to actually see, so I could share it with others, but just so that I had it for myself to say that there's the physical, there's the idea in the physical. It's like you can see it, you can read it, and you can give it to somebody else and they'll have the same experience.
Mhm.
And this is actually how I think these kind of things.
I know.
This is what goes on in
Yes.
here. So I have to get it out. Some people
Yeah.
I think very conceptually, you know.
Mhm.
So I at least I have something to show for
You
it.
do, my friend.
Yeah.
And so I know you're selling it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Obviously, so many people are going to be, running after it as soon as they see you on my little podcast.
Right, right, right,
Are you
right.
how else are you marketing?
Oh yeah, okay. There's gonna be some blogs, and there's a website we're developing, and then I'm probably gonna do some other podcasts. Don't tell Tasha. And then there's also some billboards that we might have. Like we're discussing about having some billboards in New York. And then I want to do some merchandising once it start kind of catches fire. It's fun. I love that you mentioned the belt buckle. That's so great because I'm like, that's really going to be the brand right there. It's like, the belt buckle, because it's just his little personality. The fact that, he wears this, it's just like, how dare you have, this flair? What is that saying?
Hmm.
So, yeah, so things like that. And then So eventually I want to grow it into, I'd like for it to be like, say, like a Netflix, series, something like that.
Hmm.
And then, and then also, the whole thing that happens at the Elephant Cafe,
Hmm.
that actually, those things I kind of set up for video games.
Okay.
Eventually I'd love to, like have, like that ice cream room I just love. I think that would just play, that'd be really fun because it's kind of almost like, Highlight or Tron, meets, some like a pickleball or something like that or whatever,
Yeah.
a little fun thing, so, I'd love to develop into that and definitely, like, a franchise, possibly, movie type thing. But once again, I don't mind how much I do of this independently,
Yeah.
because I really, I enjoy the process of it. I'm doing other things in my life and this, that, and the other thing. And then I can always go back to baklava
Yeah.
and, and have some creative fun. So,
Yeah.
I have a ball. It's just a joy. Really
Well,
is.
I love how big you go with your dreams, right? And at 54, you're still dreaming big. Good for you.
Oh my
You know,
God.
and you should.
I wouldn't have made it here if I didn't keep
I
dreaming.
know, and that's just I love that because we have to keep dreaming big and life, we're still, even though we are 54, and I know it is old,
You
and
put
I'm
the
almost
in too
55.
late, Tasha. You
Ish.
added that late.
Ah. We don't feel that way, and I know we don't live that way.
Right,
And I feel like, what I want to always show my children is that, yeah, I'm gonna
right.
always dream. And
You got some great kids too.
yeah, so this is great. And I think the more you put out there, the more, you have that ability to manifest these
Yeah,
things, right? Because you manifested this,
right. That's the
right?
hardest part. Yeah, that
Yeah,
right there is the hardest part. Now everything
yeah,
is going to be based on that original story.
yeah. Can I
That.
can I ask for certain merch?
Oh, sure.
I mean, I'm looking for like a tasty treat, like baklava.
Oh, okay, that part. Okay, okay. That's funny because that's what Shay was saying. Is like, really definitely find out what your audience likes and then give it to them.
Right.
So
Yeah. There's
work
just
it.
a cookie, I think, that's called baklava that is in shape of his face.
You can just eat it.
I can
Eat it
eat
just
it.
like yeah, like Nana wants
Yeah.
to do. Like
Yes.
Nana LaPortia, she goes,
I want it. Yeah.
she almost, she goes at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, I'm so proud of you. Like I said, thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with
um,
my little podcast people?
well, I say to my, he said it's dedicated to a few people, to my
Yes.
brother, to my mother, to my wife, and to my son. Definitely in his dedication, I put some things there. I'm probably even gonna upgrade it. I say like, you're my best friend from my favorite dream.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really great. Thank you.
Thank you. This is fun, Tosh.
It was super fun, Moo.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while. Her and I have
Yeah,
been planning this for a little while. And so
really.
I definitely wish you luck with your book.
Yeah.
And especially, and man, when I heard about your little puppy that it's based on, I can't tell you how that hit me, Tosh,
Aw.
because just seeing pictures of the dog and then seeing you, with the artwork and whatnot and personifying the dog and whatnot. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I can't wait to see you finish that one.
I need to finish it. It there's something there. There's something there. And I have so much fun with the illustrations. I think I'm like almost the reverse of you. My illustrations are there telling the
Mhm.
story, but my words aren't there yet. Like,
Yeah.
and I think actually the more I go back to it, it's becoming more of a picture book than anything. I'm starting to keep it like really simple. And
Yeah.
it's like kind of, it's my dog saying, "Dear self, I love you.
Dear self, I love you.
I love you."
That's deep, Tosh.
Yeah. And
I
then,
like that word. It finds itself.
yeah.
That's what's great about the medium. I mean, because
Yeah.
I mean, I could and maybe will eventually, write, your regular novel or whatever. but this medium is so fun because even if you, when I think about animating, there's different styles, but you kind of really got to figure out which one to speak through. And, it kind of tells you, which one is appropriate. And, it's not too many mediums are like that,
Yeah.
so that's what I like about this one.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you being a fan. You've been encouraging me to keep going, and
Of course.
I want you to know I'm a fan. You know that. Keep
Means a
going,
lot.
Boo.
I appreciate it. Means a
I
lot.
love you.
Love you too. We did a podcast. We did a podcast. Absagami, what's up?